I've waited a year to do this talk. You guys know that? A year, over a year, okay, roughly. I've been waiting a long time for this. I want to do a talk on education, and here's what I'm going to say. The education system isn't as good as it could be. And that's it. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's not my talk. That's not everything. No, but I do want to talk about the education system. I want to address the issue. And the issue, I think, is that education, or the education system that we know, robs us of our passion for learning. Don't you think so? I mean, this event is revolved around joyful learning, right? The first major issue, degree inflation. What's degree inflation? Well, I got to teach you guys this real quick in order for you to understand the rest of the talk. It's as simple as this. Where my parents used to get out of high school and get a pretty good paying job, now you need a bachelor's degree for that. And where you needed a bachelor's degree, now you need a master's, and so on. And that's what degree inflation is. Why is there degree inflation? Well, the reason why is because so many students are going to college now. And on one side, that seems like a good thing. But on the other side, it creates what? Degree inflation. See what I mean? So that also raises tuition. Because if colleges think, oh, more and more students are getting into our colleges, then we have a ton of demand here. We can raise tuition. They'll keep going to college no matter what. That's why college is so expensive. You know, there's places in Europe that totally riot when tuition is raised, whereas here, we don't bat an eye. I mean, Cal State just raised their tuition like what, 2%? Nobody cared. So that's one issue. Another issue, well, when you show up to school, are you guys happy? Are you guys happy that you like show up to school every day? Like, you just show up there like, booyah, here at school, Los Osos High School, ready to learn. No, really? Okay, well, I think we should. I think we should be passionate about learning. I remember back in like early elementary school, I would be like excited to go to school. You know, I was like, oh, like I get to see my teacher today. Like it was like a minor feeling, but it was still there. Whereas now, I feel like I have to force myself to get up. And that's kind of saddening. I don't know whether to blame myself or the system, but because I don't want to be guilty for that, I'll just blame the system. So it's the system's fault. It's the system, right, guys? You could touch a school. You could touch a laptop. You can pick up a pen and write on some paper. That makes sense. But where is the education system? Where's the system itself? You see, the education system itself is not on the elemental chart. It doesn't like actually exist. You know, you can't pick it up and grab it and throw it. The education system exists in the hearts and minds of us, me or you, students, teachers, parents. And because it exists in our hearts and minds, that's exactly what gives us the right to change it. That's the name of my talk, by the way, Education Revolution. First major issue within the education system is standardization. Human beings have never been very good at doing the same thing all the time. What makes us great is that we step out of our comfort zones. It's like being in a bubble. And I'm sure all the parents here know that bubbles are scary, right? Every time you hear bubble in like economic terms, for example, you're like, oh no. Funny thing about bubbles is like when you're in one, there's soapy indicators that you're in one. But you don't really notice that. For the most part, you just notice how clear the bubble is. And you get a little comfortable being in there. Ooh, here's my day-to-day life, digging a rut for myself. And it's only when you poke that bubble, pop, that you realize that you were in the one to begin with. It's kind of like, you know, us day-to-day. We're over here going to school, doing our thing. And it's only when we travel to somewhere we haven't been before that we're like, wow, the world's so big. Things are so different. Things can change. When we standardize our education, here's what we're doing. We take teachers and we force them to balance on a wall. Because out here on one hand, they're like, all right, I have to teach all this standard, stuff to my students because, they're standard curriculum. I must teach them that. And on the other hand, they're like, but here's something that I think would be more interesting. Here's something which has a bit more pizzazz to it, something I think they'll be passionate about. And it's kind of a losing battle, because at the end of the game, time is the biggest issue. Teachers need to cover whatever it is that they need to cover in a certain amount of time. So what do teachers do? Are they supposed to rush you and like, oh, okay, here's like all sorts of, quizzes and tests and so on and so forth, and here is exactly this amount of time to do standard curriculum, and here's this amount of time to do whatever it is that you guys want to do? No. Teachers are fighting for that time. They're always on the edge of what their jobs really mean to them, planting the seeds for the future. You see, education system, we like to think of it like a machine. We think if we fine-tune it enough, we'll get really good students, really good products out of this factory we have. That's not how the education system should work. Education system is a machine. And even if it was a machine, I'll share with you guys a little secret, okay? My favorite car critic, Jeremy Clarkson, always talks about this. He says his favorite cars are machines, his favorite cars aren't those which are necessarily the most mechanistic, the ones that are the most reliable, right? He says his cars and his favorite cars are the ones that have the most character, the ones that almost feel human, You guys know what I'm talking about? I mean, I'm not talking about really, really nice cars here, but I'm talking about like that old car that you have in your backyard or out in your front curb, and it's just riddled with rust and all sorts of squeaky noises. And when you get in it for some reason, it's like there's a story to be told. And it's the same thing with our education system. You see, we like to fine-tune this machine and try to make it the best machine it could possibly be. But that's going about it all wrong. What makes machines good, what makes any system good, are the people who participate in it. You guys, right here, you guys, me or you. The organics of it, the stuff that makes us human, stepping out of our comfort zones. What is it? What is it about us that wants to get everything so on the dot perfect that we just cannot realize that we're ridding our children exactly what we want them to get? Like what we're basically doing is we're saying, here, we want you to be passionate about learning. We want you to go out into the world and conquer it. But we also want to put you into an education system which we don't want to pay into, which we don't want to focus our efforts into, and which we don't really care if, you guys rid yourselves of your passion for learning. It's kind of a shame. But this isn't a depressing talk. I'm not here to just drill you guys like, oh, you're going about it all wrong. No. I'm here to say this. I'm no leader. I'm not the best student in the world. Maybe I'll be a teacher. Maybe I won't be. But I say this here now. If we shift our efforts, then we can change the world. The way you start to change the world is with education first. Education is the single most important thing in the world. What we think about is who we are. And what we do with that can make geniuses. So I'm going to end my talk here with a little quote from my favorite philosopher, Albert Camus, who's a French dude. He said, "Don't walk behind me, for I may not lead. Don't walk in front of me, for I may not follow. Just walk beside me and be my friend." Thank you.